Hey hunting family, you are tuning into the Tracks and Tackle podcast, brought to you by Menser Outdoors.
All right, hey hunting family, welcome back to Tracks and Tackle. We got a good show for you here today. It's going to be just us guys having a BS session for the most part. We're going to be talking through some recent current events and sort of just picking each other's brains and thoughts on what's going on in the hunting world. But we've been really busy over the past couple of weeks and months, and thought it was time to sit down, just the two of us, having a lot of great interviews, but it's time to just sit down and shoot the breeze with one another. So without further ado, let's get into it.
All right, folks. Hey, we are back in the studio. I'm here with Ron, the Arrow Eagle, leader of Menser Outdoors. He is the host of Tracks and Tackles. He is the straw that stirs the drink. And we've had some amazing guests on in the past few weeks, in our past few sessions. We just wanted to sit down here and kind of chat it up with each other, kind of hear what's going on new in our world and also new in the outdoorsman community. So we're going to get into some topics that are out and just dive in and just shoot the breeze. So, hey, Arrow, what's going on your end?
Man, I am just living the dream. Like you said, we had some awesome guests on here recently, and we have not had an episode in quite some time where it's just been you and me shooting the breeze with one another. I know that we've been gathering as family, and you had touched on, earlier we had started recording and hit some technical difficulties, so this is take two, I guess. But we were talking about how everybody's got a different perspective to the memory of how stories go, and that's what we do, is we make memories, and then we come on this show. The purpose of the podcast really is to share those memories. Frankly, we've got we do our best to capture the moments and share them with the listener or the viewer. And we love feedback from the viewers and the listeners. And when you guys send in comments and you send in questions are great, because we're here to educate people that, our audience is going to be a blue collar group of people, right? They're going to be folks that love the outdoors. If you're listening to podcasts like this, you're sort of connected. Either you know who we are and you're following our crazy personalities, or you just love the outdoors and you're trying to learn something, because there's always somebody out there that can teach you something. And so for me, I love the feedback that we get from viewers and listeners, and questions are awesome because we want to teach, we want to educate. I know a little bit, you know a little bit. There's always somebody else out there that knows a little bit more than us. Yeah, that's the benefit of like bringing on guests, because they're teaching us as they're teaching, the listeners as well. But I do got a beef to pick, I guess, with as we get more comments and more viewers, it turns out like there's always going to be some Karen out there that wants to, tell us that hunting's bad, or deer are meant to remain in the woods and not be hunted. And some people just say again,
they're majestical.
Yeah, deer are majestic, and I agree, they're majestic. But I'm probably not going to respond to those type of comments. There's always somebody out there that just doesn't get it, and that's cool. We appreciate the different perspectives. But I just want to say, like, if you got feedback for us, you got comments for us, send them. We do embrace that sort of stuff, and we love to address if it's a legit question. We'll address it, because we're interested in an interactive format here with everybody. So We had some wild. Hollywood had some posts. He's posting some shorts on YouTube, and he's getting some creative feedback from some of the folks that are checking those out, because they don't get the whole story; they're just shorts, right?
Yeah, I think that's part of it.
Yeah, yeah. So a little context for our comments. We appreciate that. But what we're going to get into today is we're going to give you a little nature nuggets. We did an episode when we first started called Nature Nuggets, and it was just, our musings, our thoughts on different things. And we're going to go back to that Nature Nuggets segment. We're going to talk through a couple of current events in the outdoor industry and hunting world, and, sort of pick each other's brain and have a BS session here. So this is going to be fun.
Yep, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So, hey, man,
all right, well,
where'd you get that shirt from? It's sweet.
Yeah, so this is my new Timber Cowboy shirt. Made it myself. Long story, I guess you can get in and start telling it. But this past hunting season, we had a pretty good season. We rounded up a good harvest overall for the year, and Timber Cowboy is one of the nicknames that came out of the different stories and adventures that we had together. So I got myself a Timber Cowboy shirt. If you like it, send us a note. We can get a couple made up for you. But I'm sporting it. It feels good. I don't know if it looks good. Some of the comments on YouTube are telling me to get into shape because of my, I'm no specimen of, a physique, but I am who I am, and we're not going to change for anybody. So
Right. Couldn't agree with you more. But yeah, that's sweet. We'll have to look into getting some. I know for Tracks and Tackles and Mentioned Outdoors, we're looking into whether or not we want to make some stickers, get those sent out to a couple of our listeners and a couple of our supporters, or koozies, T-shirts. But we're thinking big here. Recently on YouTube, where you start real small. Back in January, we started it before, but back in January, I think ultimately we had like 3 or 4 of our family members just following us. But now we're working on building an empire, and setting goals small. We reached 100 subscribers by the end of January, mid-January, and now ultimately we reached our new goal of 500. So the next one, 1,000, and then we can break out the FUYU to celebrate that. But growing small and just being here for our community and to support and give back. We're lifelong learners as anyone is in their field. So we're learning as we go, and trying to push that into those that are around us, so they can have some of these nuggets.
That's it. We just got, all I can share is what I've got.
Yep.
So, and I'm willing to pass that along. I need to hold on to what I got. I'm willing to share it. So
it's like when we were talking in the kitchen. It's kind of nice here. My co-host and my host here. I get to see you pretty often, man. We do family gatherings, and we've been hitting the gym on Mondays, but we've just been hanging out, so we're able to constantly bounce ideas off of each other. But we were just talking at a round table with our family yesterday, and just about things that you shouldn't do in the woods or things like that. Was just like, I was never taught that. Like you learn from your mistakes, and then you grow from them. So that's all we're about here, is just learning and growing.
One of the things that's a really good point, because one of the things, like, if you have a teacher or you have a mentor, they're going to tell you what to do, how to do it the right way. And if you're a good student, you're going to follow the directions and do it the right way. But for myself, maybe I'm just not a good student, but the things that I remember the most are doing it the wrong way, realizing for myself, oh, that didn't work. That deer busted me, or, that bass, didn't take that bait, or he got off the hook, or whatever the scenario is. But when it doesn't work out, and because I did it the wrong way, I learned to do it the right way. And I remember those. You remember the one that got away a lot longer than you remember when everything went according to plan.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. Because there's plenty of times went south. That what we were specifically talking was, like, I'm in the woods. There's some does coming towards me, and it's rut, probably early rut, but they weren't getting close enough. They were just hanging around that 50-yard range. Nothing for me to get excited and get the bow off the hook. And they just stayed there and started walking out, and then ultimately started walking like they're going further. So I got my grunt call with me. I normally don't bring it with me or really use it. So it's a new instrument. But I grunted once or twice, and immediately they wheezed and took off running. But that's the wrap on that. Don't grunt at does. But also with that experience, 3 minutes later, a big bruiser came running up over the hill. So yeah, I learned from my mistake, but it was also kind of a blessing in disguise. But it is a good point, because hunting and, I guess fishing might be a little bit different, but hunting primarily, you have a mentor when you're growing up, but after you get old enough or you seem like you can walk in the woods and get out of the woods without getting lost, you essentially get your own spot, and it's independent sport. So, the learning has less to do with the in-field experience and more with the talking aspect, but that's not always how I learn. I like to learn more hands-on.
Yeah, I mean, and we all learn differently.
Right.
Some are visual learners, some are audio learners. Some of us got to screw up a couple times until we get it. It takes more than just telling me for me to get it through my thick skull. So, but that's the take or the gist of the purpose of why we do what we do. We want to educate. We want to be educated. Always looking for guests to come on the show that can teach us a thing or two. We grew up hunting just like a lot of you guys out there. We're born into this life, but it doesn't mean that we hunt everything, and doesn't mean that we fish everything. And so I'm the first guy to say there's guys out there a lot smarter than me, and I want to learn from them, and we're going to do our best to continue to bring you that type of content where we're bringing on people that can educate. But in addition, we're just sharing stories. We're making memories, and we're having fun doing it.
Yep, and back to kind of what we were arguing about in the kitchen, what we talked about on our first take is we can point people back to say, like, hey, this is what actually happened to. Listen to episode 5. We'll get our story straight, and it's kind of our video log. Just that documented.
So let's get into this. We were having a story. We were, sharing a meal. It's, the kitchen table. It's the family. Everybody's just being themselves, cutting loose. And the topic came up of the very first deer that I recorded video. I videoed the hunt, and it wasn't because I didn't go out there with the intent of videoing the hunt. It was several years back. Recently got a smartphone, maybe for the first time. It wasn't that long ago, but I had a camera on the phone, and I saw this little deer coming through. It wasn't a big deer. I knew it was a buck. I was archery hunting, and there's a trail that ran uphill from me about, I want to say, 30 yards at the closest to the stand that I was in. But you could see this deer coming from 75 yards away, from my left to my right, uphill above me. He was going to walk this trail, and I'm like, man, antler restrictions here in PA. You got to have 3 on one side. He's just a little guy. So I got my camera out. I left my bow on the hook, and I just started recording them just because, outdoorsmen appreciate nature. We're not out there just to kill. We appreciate there's something that is majestic about being out in the woods and observing wildlife. And so I'm watching this little buck come into me, and he's getting closer and getting closer, and he gets to about that 30 or 45, 30-yard mark, and I can see with my eyes he's got 3 on one side. And so I didn't have a whole lot of, circumstances are different for everybody. I'm not a trophy hunter. Didn't have a whole lot of time to hunt that year, and so I'm like, man, I had to make a decision. Do I just let him walk because he's a smaller buck and just capture him on my cell phone, capture him and record him? Or do I try to put the phone away, get the bow off the tree hook, draw back? That's a lot for a deer that's within 30 yards. Most likely I was going to be busted. But I made the decision. I put the phone away. I was able to. He put his head behind a tree. I got the bow off. I drew on him, and my brother was telling me about this is another debatable topic: the fixed broadhead versus mechanical broadhead. But my brother uses Rage, and he's, swearing up and down about the rage in the cage. So I'd also, I'd went out and purchased some. I was going to try them. So it was first experience with a rage broadhead, and I put one into this deer. So after I got the shot off, I was able to get my camera back out and film the aftermath, right? So we got to film the track the deer, got the, bloody arrow, so long story short, we recovered the deer and it was a successful hunt. But the long story short was I got this itch, like, man, that was really cool. Self-filming my hunt. I had everything except for the action shot, the actual impact of the arrow, because I wasn't set up to do that. And several years removed from that, several years later now, I've been trying to self-film myself, and we've gotten a lot of cool footage and video and everything. But at the end of the day, you realize it's not easy. It's hard to self-film your hunts and be successful and kill big deer. So anyway, long story short, we were having this conversation, and certainly my eldest brother did not remember the story the same way that it happened. And he was telling his version, which, we love his version because it's very colorful usually. And either way, what's that?
It draws a crowd.
His version will draw a crowd. So anyway, we can go back to the tape because I have the video. And that's the cool thing about making podcasts, recording our hunts. Even when you're out there and you get a hit on an animal and you're not sure if it's a good hit or not, if we're recording, we can go back to the tape. It's just like playing football in high school or college or at whatever level you played. Go back, let's review the film, and let's see what went right, what went wrong. And sometimes it refreshes us whenever the fog of war does set in and you don't recall exactly how things happened. So anyway, that's my shtick on what happened at the conversation. And,
right, and it's fun just with our family and our outdoors background, in the sense of every family get together. There's something that sparks up, and it's just like a 5-minute friendly debate, just to clear a story up, and just recalling the past. So it's always fun, and it's a good time just to be with family and see each other.
Yeah.
Hey, Arrow, I saw you looked into, and you found an article of some guy, something about he found just a bunch of antlers in his attic.
Yeah. So let's get into this today, guys. I'm gonna share my screen here if I'm bright enough to do that, and I'm gonna pull up an article. This guy in Michigan found a potential state record, non-typical, stowed away in a family home since the 1940s. And I thought this was a good topic to talk about because of the fact that, things were different back in the day. Hunters just went out and certainly had bragging rights with your buddies, but, we weren't always measuring the deer. There's a lot of big deer that have been killed over the years, especially, it's years gone by that haven't seen the light of day, and hunters would just go out and harvest their animal and set it off to the side.
Yeah, they're just feeding their family.
That's right. That's exactly right. So let me see if I can find this here. I want to find a tab, and we're going to go to found and forgotten. So let me see. See how well this pulls up. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't.
There you go.
Cool. All right, so this guy, this is from North American Whitetail, and this is a potential Michigan state record, non-typical, discovered and stowed away in a family's home since the 1940s. And look at this thing, man. It's got some gnarly horns on it.
It kind of reminds me of the Euro mount you got at your house, but like 10 times bigger. How it's
I'd love to have something like that in my house. Right. So let me run through the article here real quick, and then let's talk through this. Okay. because it's relatively short. But um, early to mid 1900s, deer hunting was far different experience from what most of us know. Hunters wore clothing, used transportation gear, which seems very primitive compared to what we have today. Lever action rifles, Winchester 94s, Savage 99s, chambered in calibers long gone without scopes were very popular. There were no manufactured tree stands, and individual still hunts or group man drives were the tactics most often used. Talks through here about the deer population, tremendous deer population, whitetails we enjoy would have been something they could not have imagined. Whitetails were only where you could find them. You might walk miles in pursuit and then have a hefty drag back to camp. I know something about that. It was sport for sure, but getting venison to sustain family was also real work. Most certainly there were some bragging rights involved, though the focus was not on trophy bucks. So, this article, North American Whitetail, we hear hundreds of giant bucks taken each season, dozens in the magazine annually, and many more online breaking news buck campaign. Again, once in a while, we discover one from the past with great tale to pass along. This gentleman's name is Bernie, I hope I pronounce this right, but Knudsen, who lives in North Dakota, is known for collecting antlers and hunting big bucks. He reached out recently with an intriguing story, and this is what it's about. So take a look at the antlers if you're watching on here. This guy is like just this crazy, massive, non-typical buck. How would you describe this?
Like radioactive buck has been drinking water and drinking protein water at that. He's
drinking
huge.
That Michigan water.
Hopefully not from Flint.
Oh my gosh. All right, so here's his story. This is Bernie's story. One day I left my shop to get some parts, he relays. When I returned, my cousin told me a guy had stopped by with a big rack. When I asked how big the rack was, he said real big. Since the mystery man had already left with the antlers, Bernie just shrugged his shoulders and went back to work. 2 weeks later, drove back up to the shop and spotted a truck he didn't recognize. He recalls, and as I walked by, the whole front seat appeared filled with antlers. I took a look and I asked how much, because he's a collector. It didn't take long to come to an agreement, and the huge rack changed hands. I was not letting this one get away, he smiled. And after the sale, Rob Turner, who sold the rack, filled in the interesting details and the history about this rack. All right, so here's what we know. The giant was killed by Rob's grandfather, C.R. Turner, sometime in the mid-1940s, and Ontonagon County, Michigan, at a very remote deer camp. So Mr. Turner and his hunting buddies made several trips to those isolated woods over the course of several decades. My dad was in the service over in Europe during World War II when my grandfather killed the buck, Rob states. That's as close as I can pinpoint when he took it. So he took this buck during World War II sometime, and when they start telling stories about, how deer camp was back in the day, that's what really intrigued me about this article. So Rob continues, I never got to hunt with him. That's it. And my dad was not a hunter. So that's interesting in itself. But I listened to many tales during fishing trips as I was growing up. Each fall, in mid-November, Rob's grandfather and his group of friends would pack up provisions, drive their automobiles north to a point where the road ended. From there, local, using horse-drawn sled, would transport them many miles north until they reached hunting woods, somewhere near Lake Superior. They would remain until it ended, the hunt, without benefit of electricity, telephone service, any modern conveniences. Primitive hunting at its finest.
Right, that's for sure.
Very few pictures of life at camp exist, but upon examination, they reveal plaid wool, knee-high laced leather boots, plenty of snow, a game pole sagging from the weight of numerous bucks, fall after fall, even during the war years, deer season traditions carried on. Strapping big bucks to an automobile fenders was a very real thing. So, I mean, this is an awesome story, and apparently, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but gosh, you know what? Let me just read this next paragraph, and let's talk about this. Upon one trip, tragedy struck. One of the men in the party passed away suddenly from a presumed heart attack. Now, think about this. No way to notify the family or get any outside help. The remaining hunters had the gruesome task of deciding how to handle preserving the body and keeping it safe from wild animals. Until the sled returned, the local guy with the sled. So the simplest solution was bundle it up, hang it from the game pole, and that apparently worked very well in below freezing temperatures, and the hunt went on as planned. So, I mean, I couldn't even imagine something like that. But this is like northern UP, Upper Peninsula. The article can be found on North American whitetail. Long story short, this was found in Rob's grandfather's attic, and he never got a chance to hunt with his grandpa, but he's got these crazy stories of his grandpa hunting. And I want to give credit to the guy that wrote the article if I can find it here. But what's your initial take on that story?
I think it's pretty impressive. My first impression was I see this guy holding this massive rack, and then behind him I see he has multiple deer that are mounted. And I'm kind of like, well, why didn't he mount this one? But it makes sense now. The story was that, a collector ultimately got it. But it's impressive deer, and it kind of gives value to, us with the logbook, and, memories back. We'll be able to go back and look at them and, know the story. But yeah, just for that, the guy that harvested, just for his son, just grandson, I guess it was, but just for him to, be able to spend time with his pap, and, the stories I'm sure that guy has, because back then it was a different way of life. So, but yeah, an impressive deer. I don't know what I would do if I had anything close to that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you see these like, these whitetail farms that grow deer like that. It's just like incredible compared to what we hunt here on public land, even private land in the Northeast. We don't see racks like that.
I wonder too, because they were in question whether it was going to be a state record or not. But I don't know if that.
Yeah, the article goes into that. The article goes into that. I don't think. I mean, maybe by now it has been measured. There's like an unofficial score.
Right.
But I think they were going to have Boone and Crockett look it up.
Yeah, because I'm sure there's a lot of weird rules when it comes to state records, because you have to do everything by the book. So even just to say, like, for instance, like if you roadkill buck and you go up and take it, like it's not harvest legally, so you wouldn't get the stamp of approval to say, hey, this is the record. So
it wasn't a harvested state record, right?
Yeah, I would have to do some digging in, but it's interesting because I even read online there are some stories about possibly a world record bass. It was caught out west somewhere, big lake, but by the time they caught him, they measured it on 3 different scales. They called a game warden to come out and authenticate it. But I guess since it was out of water for so long, it lost some water weight. Mm-hmm. And then by the time it got there, it lost half a pound or so of what its mass was. But just, you're playing the game to get it authenticated. So I would just be interested to see if that took a turn for the better and that buck got its privilege or not.
Yeah, I mean, we can try to look into that. I think what the article said was it's definitely a county record. Yeah, but it's within striking distance of whatever that official measurement was going to be of being a state record. But it's just so cool that like something so unique. His grandfather he had numerous mounts, right, and he put them aside. The dad wasn't a hunter. Which was the interesting thing that sort of piqued my interest in this story was this guy grew up hunting, but his dad wasn't a hunter, but he heard all these stories about his grandfather hunting, so he took it up himself. So it's almost like it skipped a generation. So I know there's a lot more details that we don't know about this, but I thought it was like a really cool, like how does finding a massive buck in the attic change our perspective on things, because there are big bucks out there that we're not even aware of, harvested from years gone by.
We're going to have to search Pap's attic.
I've been through that attic. There's no massive bucks hiding up there. Although if you go up into the attic, there are some deer hanging on the wall.
Right. I think there was one. This is like I don't know. It's albino if it's white, but what's it called if it's black? Wasn't there like an all black deer he got in Carolina, South Carolina?
Well, they have black-tailed deer instead of white-tailed deer, but
it was all
I don't
black.
know about an all-black deer.
Yeah, there's a picture up there, I'm pretty sure, but sounds like another tale, some controversy. We'll have to find that picture and just see.
I want to see that picture because I'm not familiar with what you're talking about.
Maybe I'm making something up, but I swear I remember it from childhood. Lon's upstairs. I'll have to touch base with him, but yeah, just pretty impressive story. You just think, the tales that grandfather would have.
And what about all right, let's go back. Let's take this from the top. Like, these guys really went to deer camp.
Yeah. Much more than we have. We have our camps primitive, but we complain and whine about the little things, but it's not like that. They lived it, they breathed it, it was a way of life for them.
Yeah, it's like you drive until the road runs out, and then you get a local to load up his horse-drawn sled to take you up into the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which might as well be southern Canada.
It was a horse sled, not a dog sled. I caught my ears.
Yeah, and then to have something happen to one of your hunting buddies while you're out there for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that was a really interesting story as well.
They couldn't do anything about it. They just had to basically wait.
Yeah, that's like back in the day for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I've never had to deal with something like that. That's a traumatic event for sure.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say I'd be interested to know if any similar stories from our listeners out there. If you come across, you're going through Grandpa's attic and you come across any sweet finds, because this was a huge one. All right. Well, any other thoughts on that? It piqued my interest. So it's a giant buck hiding in the attic. It's cool that a collector got it. That the grandson was able to sell it, and for whatever reason, you got to make that decision whether you want to hold on to it or whether you don't. But something like that, people pay big bucks.
Yeah.
For big racks.
Yeah, everything has a value, and I'm sure there's a niche market. So he probably got taken care of for that guy. But yeah, just interesting. Keep your eyes open, keep your eyes peeled. Never know what you're going to find.
Yeah. And there's definitely, because back in the day, everything was a little bit more wild and primitive. Today there's a encroachment. Everything gets built up, so you got to go deeper and deeper into the woods versus, back in the 40s to get to your hunting spots. You're either not going deep into the woods or you're hunting that urban type of hunt, where you're in somebody's backyard. So all of that impacts, because I know that, some of these urban areas that are built up, big deer grow in those areas because they're not hunted.
Yeah. Yeah. But even nowadays with the build up, where we live, it's not a city, it's more like a town kind of thing. And, it's 10, 15 minutes to the next town. But long story short, there's a big state game lands. It's massive, but you walk in, you kind of get away and you're like, wow, I don't know of anyone else that's been back here. I'm in the middle of nowhere. You go through all the thick stuff and you think no one's been here before. And then you look around and you see orange tape of someone marking for a tree stand, or you see somebody's tree stand, or you see some beer bottles. So where we're at, there's always somebody that's been somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything. This is the old country here.
Yeah. Different times.
Oh, yeah, definitely. All right, so I wanted to hit this other article. Let me see if I can bring it up. This one is 14 trophy deer heads stolen from a Canadian hunter's cabin.
14.
let me see if I can pull it up. But yeah, I mean, talk about, we got a cabin and we don't keep anything really expensive there for this reason, right?
Yeah. We took our trail cameras down in the winter. That's like probably our most expensive thing.
All right, so this one's Field and Stream. You can find this in fieldandstream.com. Published. This author is Travis Hill. Published February 29th. So not too long ago. But a hunter's lost treasure trove of European mounts and tanned wolf and bear hides during a break-in. So basically, they got this cabin up in British Columbia. I got a picture on the screen here of all their different Euro mounts. And some of the, these Canadian big chocolate horns, beautiful deer. The break-in was discovered on February 9th. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police responded.
The Mounties.
Yep, the Mounties, man. They break in at a remote cabin in Fort St. John, British Columbia. After the door was kicked in, and they found numerous items missing from the residence, including 14 sets of whitetail and mule deer antlers, one cinnamon-colored black bear hide, one gray wolf hide, one mountain goat hide, box of .22 ammo, and some other things. So they're seeking the public's help in retrieving the stolen taxidermy. So let me just pause right there. What are your initial thoughts on that? Because part of me is like, all right, I understand kids will be kids, but come on, man.
Yeah, I'm a little heartbroken because.
Could you imagine? Because those are memories. Like, you can't get
exactly. That was the point that I was going to make. It's not just the deer skull, the antlers. Like, it's a beautiful piece of artwork in the home, but there's stories and memories made with those. And I think of at our camp we have the small wall and the big wall, and we're going to get on the big wall this year. And it's not every year you get on the big wall. So if we just walk in and everything's gone, like it's kind of just sad. Just all those memories are gone. And then two, you think, how much effort did these criminals have to put into to go and go about this? They must have brought a couple trucks in, because if you ever try hauling deer antlers, they're not convenient and easy to haul. So just the bed of the truck you'd fill up, but everything else is, from what they're saying, it just sounds like they really elaborately planned this through. So I don't know. It's just
I would just say, if you're gonna go out, respect. We talked about this in an episode recently where, be happy for other hunters. Right. If somebody goes out and shoots a nice, cinnamon coat bear here, like I got on the picture right now, or a nice mule deer, or a rack chocolate horn, 4 or 5 year old buck, man, get up for them, hype them up. Be pumped. Can't we as a hunting community cheer one another on and not be jealous of one another, or I want what you have, that sort of thing. And who knows who these criminals were? They might not have been part of the hunting community at all, but why else would they take this? The guy said, who was it? The article reads here: the hides and antlers represent years of hunts and fond memories for the family who own the cabin. And, they're looking for somebody in that community, the Fort St. John's locals, to be on the lookout for anybody who has a new collection of antlers or hides is trying to sell them. Because people will buy, in that last article, there are collectors out there. This is a real issue in the hunting community,
I think PA has a rule against it, but most states, I'm assuming, don't. But yeah, you would think, I don't know, they would be able to catch them pretty easily. I'd be thinking, number one, it's somebody that knows that they're there, and then number two, yeah, they're going to be trying to sell them all at once. But you never know.
And how do you measure the value of a collection like that? Like you said, it's priceless.
Yeah, and our hunting cabin, and I'm sure most hunting cabins, it's minimal usage. It's bare minimum. It's primitive. So
seasonal.
There's not really insurance or any protection on it. So all of those lost goods, are gone. And I'm even thinking from what you just said there, Arrow, when our house burnt down, we had to go through and itemize everything and put a value and put a price on it. So I don't know. How would you?
Yeah.
Like memories are priceless. They're unforgettable.
Certain things just can't replace. So here's a picture of a massive gray wolf hide. So it looks like they did have some documented photos of these things. But yeah, it's just a shame, I would say, for a guy like you or me that appreciates being in the outdoors. We do hunt. When we come across a nice harvest that we would call a trophy, we try to preserve that, and it's like from the first article, it's nice to be able to preserve something to the point where you can pass it on to the next generation for somebody, whether they choose to hold on to it or sell it, and for monetary value or that's irrelevant, but handing stuff down and passing along those memories is it's important to be able to do as a hunting community. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I'm just sitting here thinking, for our camp, and I'm sure most hunters out there, we go to our cabin to park everything that's going on in the world and escape, to just get away from reality. Just spend some time in the woods. Clear our minds and just be stress free. So how unfortunate for the cabin owner. He's thinking he's going to go to his weekend for a hunting trip, or just to get away from the world and just have some peace, and everything's flipped upside down as soon as he gets there and realizes that he's been robbed.
Totally. Like, I mean, that's a great perspective on, when we go to the cabin, it's like a weekend getaway. And, we don't have anything of value up at our camp, but, some cabins are pretty well kept. So from reading this and from your perspective, like, are there certain precautions hunters should take when leaving their cabins unattended for extended periods? I know when we are done in the winter, like, we lock ours down pretty tight. But what would you say we should be doing whenever you are only using it for seasonal purposes? How do you handle that?
It's kind of a loaded question because growing up and where we grew up, we're not worried about people breaking and entering. Everybody around us has mutual respect, and the people that don't realize everybody has guns. So it's just
Right.
a common thing. You don't mess with someone else's stuff. So growing up, our front doors normally unlocked, our trucks normally unlocked, no issues with that. But then, I drive to work, I make sure I'm somewhere I don't know, I lock everything up. So, being our cabin's in a secluded area, it's mostly, minimally protected, I would say. But, ultimately we do bear it up, lock the doors, and make sure everything is kind of break-in proof. But ultimately, if someone wants to take something from you, they will.
They want it bad enough, they will. Yeah.
It's like with our tree stands. We make it inconvenient for someone that wants to walk off with it. We lock it up. But if someone really wants it that bad, you can come with bolt cutters. You can come with a chainsaw if you really wanted it that bad and chop it down. But it's just how bad do you want it? So, but yeah, we just do enough to keep anyone from interested. I wouldn't keep anything that would of interest or value anywhere close to windows where someone could walk by and look in. You could always set up cameras. Minimalistically, you could set up just a trail camera just to look who's going in and out of your driveway. But that's essentially all that I got. But it just comes down to respect, and respecting your neighbor and those around you, and do as best you can, knowing that there's good people out there in the world, but there's also bad people that want to take everything from you.
Yeah. When you were talking about how we grew up not having to lock our doors. But when you go to work and stuff, you lock up the truck and things like that. That's probably key. Whether it's your automobile or it's your cabin out in the woods, I would say you don't. When I take my truck into town and I park in the parking lot, I don't leave my cell phone laying on the seat or my high dollar valuable items out for everybody to see. Or my wife doesn't leave her purse laying out where it's enticing somebody to try to get in. So out of sight, out of mind for a lot of things. And I think, this story's, we started off with a good feeling story, and then we talk about something like this. It's not such a good feeling story, but it's having respect for other people's stuff, man. Don't want what someone else has. Go out, work for it, earn it yourself, and be happy for the guy next to you, to your right or to your left, because they worked hard for that, and it's a memory, and it really is implaceable.
Just knowing where you're at. So, if you're in an area where you have a lot of neighbors and, you don't know the area as best as you should, then take extra precautions. But if you're in the middle of nowhere, then, worry less about it. But, it's tough. But you like to think there's not too many people out there that would do that, which in reality takes one bad apple to make the bunch look bad. So just doing what you can to keep yourself safe and keep your property safe.
All right, 10-4, man. I got one more article I wanted to pull up. This is also Field and Stream, and I wanted to end on a happy note.
Hey, it's getting about that season.
And it's a good segue, man. This is called Best Time to Fish. It was updated February 27th. So, but than that, keep your eyes to the skies and ear to the weather forecast to maximize your fishing success on the water. So, we're getting ready to shift gears from hunting deer to we've been doing some shed hunting, but it's getting on to fishing season for us.
Get the water and cool off.
Yeah, it's going to warm up. We're going to get out by the streams and get into doing some turkey hunting as well. So,
yeah, don't forget about them birds. But it'll be interesting reading about this article, especially if it's going to talk about the weather. Because prior to it, I've got told you want to fish before the rain and right after. And then I had another angler tell me that the barometric pressure changes with the rain, and it cools the water down, so it's not worth fishing after. So I think it'll be good to educate myself here and see if I can learn anything from this one.
Yeah, so I mean, we should have done a completely different episode on this. So I'm just going to hit this at a really high level. But they basically say the best times to fish here are fishing when the light is low. Fish when the weather is stable or about to destabilize, which is speaking to what you were just talking about. When the moon is favorite, and fish whenever you can. I like that. So fish when the light's low. It's common that the best time to fish is early. We get out early in the morning. It explains why devout anglers routinely get up before dawn to be on the water at first light. But have you ever thought about why? Sure, there's an advantage to beating someone who slept into a good spot or enjoying the lake or river in the quiet hours before all the jet skiers and water skiers and rafters and tubers, they all show up, right? But the main reason fishermen are early to rise is because they want to fish when the light is low. There's a reason why the hours right before sunrise and sunset are called the magic hours. Fish are often at the most aggressive and least cautious during these windows. All fish are sensitive to sunlight to some degree. Walleyes, for example, are more active in stained water during the dark at night. Even fish like trout and bass that don't really mind a sunny day tend to get more cautious at noon under a bluebird sky. And it's not at all. It's not that they won't eat, it's just that they may not move as fast or as far for a meal. Light makes it easier for them to really study their food, and we're always trying to trick them into, this is the food that you want. My lure is the thing that you're hungry for, that sort of thing. So daily low periods also happen to coincide with temperature settings, which make fish more comfortable throughout the season. In the heat of the summer, water is going to be its coolest just before dawn. In the fall and winter, it's usually a degree or two warmer just before dark, having soaked up any of the available rays absorbed ambient heat from wood or rocks protruding from the surface. So, that's the fish when the light is low. It's interesting the article talks about this because, we get up early to fish, but did you ever think about why?
Yeah, Yeah, I never really thought too much into it, but if you think whole picture, like, when it comes to the outdoors world, especially in the woods, deer and turkeys, and I would say most critters, they move first thing in the morning and first thing as the sun's going down. Whether they're leaving their home or going out to eat or going back to their bedding area. I think it's just the way. Even if you look at us as humans, like you get up, you go to work early, then you get off, you get home, and then you're active for a little bit, and then it gets dark, and then you're in bed.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's like the cycle, the nature,
the way of life.
Yeah.
But
So you were talking about like the weather, and so
yes.
the best time to fish for bass, they say, fish when the weather is stable or just about to destabilize. So, are fish more active when the barometric pressure is low or high? Do fish really bite better in the rain? These are questions fishermen have been debating forever, but if you talk to serious anglers, most are going to agree that one set of weather conditions isn't necessarily better than another. What fish really crave is stability. So whether it's raining for a week or sunny for a week, the fish are going to adapt to those stable conditions and bite. What they don't like is when it's pouring all day and chilly one day, windy and sunny the next, roasting hot with thunderstorms the day after that, cool again the following day. So that destabilized is what they don't like. The more rapidly changing weather conditions, the more difficult it can be to catch fish because they're not settling into a specific pattern or location. Changing weather often has them in flux, so you should always monitor the long-term forecast for a few days before and after the day you plan to fish. And you want to see similar wind, sky, temperature conditions, but if it appears to be a big change is coming, all hope is not lost.
Makes sense.
Rapid weather. You go ahead.
Yeah, there was a day, I don't know what it was. It was November. It might have even been December, but it was freezing cold all week. And then there was a day that it was 70 degrees out, and I went with my friend. We went out pond fishing, and we caught two little of these tiny little pound scrubs. Nothing else was biting like it normally would, so it wasn't as fun. It was nice to get out, but I think that attests to what this article says is, just because the weather's really nice one day, and it's just, if it's cold, just kind of, you can still get out, but just be a little bit weary. You might not have your best day of fishing.
That's it. Now, they go on here to talk about a rapid weather change can also be an incredible bite trigger, especially during the summer months. So it's been 90 plus degrees and it's sticky for a couple days, and then the weatherman's calling for a storm front. You can expect action hours before and right when the storm hits. Naturally, you have to use your judgment and fish safely, right? The fish can feel the changing temperature or the changing pressure, and that's that barometric pressure you were talking about. And they know a shakeup's coming and often go into a feeding tear leading up to the change. So conversely, the days following that major shakeup can be extremely hard to fish because the pressure, the wind, and the temps, they're all over the place until things stabilize again, which, at that time, once things stabilize, the fishing will pick up. So just some like really cool fishing tips, so guys don't think about this, but you want to, I just think about the summertime, and I think like when it's like really hot, it's really sticky, and it's really, humid. I'm not that active, but whenever that storm front does move through and it cools down, like it's after the storm. I get outside. I'm going to get outdoors and probably do a little bit more once the temperatures drop and the humidity drops myself.
Right. Yeah, there was that trip that we went in town to Gettysburg at one pond, but it was middle of the day. It was, 90 some degrees out at 12 o'clock, and the only thing biting were bluegills.
Right. But, yeah, midday fishing's not the best.
We'll have to give that spot a chance again. You like, if you have a bad experience, just to be like, I'm not coming back here again, but we'll have to give it its chance and get back out.
Yeah, let's get out there and do that here this spring or this summer, and maybe hit it like first thing in the morning and see if we get a different take on it.
So I'm interested to see what it's talking about the moon phase here, because there's in the deer community, there's there's evidence to say that the moon phase is all just a scam, but there's people that swear by it. So I didn't know it was a thing for the fish. I mean, maybe it does make sense with the tide, but maybe not for creek fishing. I don't know.
Well, let me go through this here. So, of all the natural factors that dictate fish aggression and willingness to feed, I believe it's fair to say that moon phase is overlooked by most anglers. And I understand this because it's easy to say, who cares about the moon? I'm not fishing at night. The reality, of course, is that the moon affects water and fish 24 hours, 7 days a week. And while I don't believe it's the most critical factor in deciding the best time to fish, it's worth having basic understanding how it can alter the bite. And you think about it, like there is a gravitational pull, with the tides and things of water, like that moon phase does affect the water. So this goes on to say musky anglers are notorious for tracking moon phases, putting loads of stock into these famously finicky predators, opening their mouths at specific times during specific phases. How the moon affects fish is complex, but in a nutshell, the moon shifts gravitational pull on the Earth, which does things like create tides and salt water. It's funny, somebody just said that, right?
Smart guy.
Though you and I can't feel the difference in the moon's pull in any given phase, fish can. Roughly every 6 hours, there's a major or minor moon phase. And to break them down simply, the major phase occurs when the moon aligns with the poles directly overhead or underfoot. The minor phase occurs when the moon is halfway between these points, sort of aligned with the equator. And most fishermen don't or won't give these positions any thought, but I've been out with serious striped bass and musky guys who track the phases and insisted we'd get bites or at least see fish just before the peak of the next major or minor moon phase, and we did. So this goes on to say that it's also worth considering the brightness of the moon, which can help or hurt you depending on the scenario. So it's interesting because I've never really thought about that, but when the topic came up, like common sense says, yeah, there's a gravitational pull that messes with the tides.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
And then they wrap the article and they just say, the best time to fish is simply when you can, right? What do we always say? It's better
than a good day at work.
Yeah, bad day fishing's better than a good day work. So, fish whenever you can. Doesn't matter, tracking the weather, being there at low light, monitoring the moon. They're all useful to help you catch more fish. But you know what? Get out and get your line in the water. That's what we're going to do.
Hungry. If the fish are hungry, they'll bite.
Famous words from one of the team here says, get your line in the water. If the fish are hungry, they're going to bite. And that's what it really comes down to.
Yeah, just spend time out there. That's what I do. I just get out when I can. I have a job. Weekends tend to get filled up pretty quickly. But, yeah, there's a few here and there where I dedicate getting up early to get to my spot and get the line wet. So I know I talked to you, Air Eagle, about this year being more aggressive. I don't know if that's the word, but more explorative and just trying different waters and getting out. So maybe when we do that, we'll set ourselves up for the best success, and we'll try to hit the water a little bit early or time it up from a storm or do some research on the moon.
Yeah. Let's look into it, and we can get our planning in place. But I guess here to summarize, we if you guys have any thoughts or comments on any of these articles, certainly share them. We love to get the feedback from the people that are listening and watching. We've got highs and lows in this sport. You can go from the high of, hey man, I just found this amazing treasure in my grandfather's attic. Something that most hunters would never see a deer like that in their entire lifetime. But then there's also lows, where you got some knuckleheads kicking in the door of a cabin and taking Euro mounts and furs and stuff that, look, it takes time to prepare those things. It takes time you don't know how long that hunter had to sit in the woods to harvest that animal, and then, to take the skin or the hide and break it down so that it's a finished product so that it can be displayed proudly in the cabin. There are highs and lows of this outdoor world that we live in, but never lose the passion within you. You know, we always say nature is our playground because, you know, even though there are good news stories out there and there are bad news stories out there, we never want to just not go out and enjoy it, which I think this final article on fishing really makes and touches on that point. You know, fish whenever you can. Just get out. Like, even though there are better times to hunt or fish, and there are worse times to hunt or fish, despite the highs or lows, get out. Nature's your playground. Spend time in it. And that's really what's important.
Yeah, there's the saying out there, be present where your feet are. So,
right.
You know, whatever you're doing, but especially when it comes to, you know, getting out in the water, getting on that shore, or, you know, being at a cabin with friends and family, or, you know, being in your tree stand, just be attentive to where you're at, absorb the moment, because you never know what's going to happen, and you don't know when you're going to be able to do it next. But no, this was a great episode. It's good to touch on some things and highlight. You know, I feel like I learned something from the fishing aspect, and, you know, just gave me a sense of perspective. That's a good word to use, especially for that poor gentleman that lost everything. We'll have to look into it and follow the story to see if they found it. But Ron, why don't you get in here and highlight some of our upcoming events that we're going on? I know we have a few guests lined up, and we have a cabin trip coming up. But why don't you highlight that to our listeners here?
Yeah, I mean, we've got. I got to look at the schedule to see who's coming on the show here. Got a friend of mine, good hunting buddy, known for many years. He's definitely a bird killer and you know, general outdoor enthusiast. A friend of mine is going to be coming on. We'll have him on an upcoming episode to sit down and talk turkey with us. We have a lot planned here in the next couple of weeks where we're going to be getting out. And we're going to be spending a lot of time in the outdoors. We are going to run up the cabin. We've been putting this off for several weeks, but waiting for the weather to be right. But we got to get up. We got to get some trail cameras set at camp so that we can start to monitor everything's moving through there. And we got some work that needs to be done on camp as well. But balancing that out with upcoming turkey season, you know, I don't know how much work gets done during turkey season, but we're going to spend some time up at camp, so hopefully we'll get some good video and content and share those stories with you guys as we walk through that. And then finally, trout season starts. So that's like a family tradition for us to spend time doing trout opener, really. We don't spend a lot of time trout fishing like I did when I was a teenager, but that opening day, getting out, spending time with family, getting out with my dad and you know, my brother, my nephews, and the family, just spending a morning together. A lot of those memories happen before we even start catching fish. So yeah, we'll sit down and we're going to talk through all those things.
Yeah, at the cabin, our tradition, you know, deer opener, we get up the day before, so we're able to kind of spend the evening together before you know, we go our separate ways on our expedition. But it's the same way for trout. We get to our hole early, and, you know, little by little more of the crew arrives, but, you know, just sitting down, passing time, and sharing stories, shooting the breeze. But, you know, just memories and traditions that, you know, we're never going to forget as we continue to get more and more gray hairs.
Yeah, every gray hair is a memory. So. Yeah. That's it, man. It's been good. This is a different little format that we've gone through today, but I enjoyed, you know, the research, getting this stuff lined up, and, you know, talking through it and getting your input on these different things as well. So it's been fun.
Yeah, it has. We'll have to do another nugget segment here soon, and just keep our listeners updated, and, you know, even ourselves, just stay prevalent in the outdoors world, just to, you know, continue to learn as we touch base on in the very beginning of the episode. We're lifelong learners in this sport.
That's it. Well, that's it, folks. Nature is your playground. You can always find us at Tracks and Tackle. You can find us at Menser Outdoors. We all of our podcasts can be found anywhere that you listen to podcasts. You can get us on Instagram. We are on Rumble. We are on YouTube. We are on Facebook. all of the above. And if you wanted to find any list down of all of our podcasts, you can go to buzzsprout.com, tracksandtackle.buzzsprout.com. That's where you will find us. We are Tracks and Tackle. We thank you for tuning in. And remember, folks, always stay wild.
Stay wild.